Billy Slater finally got it wrong. So look, we're a few days post Origin 2 right now, and everyone is focused on Origin 3, and yet no one is really talking about how bad Queensland were in Game 2. And look, I'm a fair guy. I love fairness and I love equality, and if this was New South Wales, if that was Brad Fittler, we'd still be talking about it and we'd still be bagging the bloke. So I'm here to be fair and to give Billy Slater some critical feedback. And I don't want to bag Billy. Alright, of course I do. But look, a lot of the content over the past few weeks has been New South Wales based. And guess what, Queenslanders? You're my second favourite state. And content-wise, I want to look after you. So let's talk about Queensland in Game 2. Let's talk about where Billy went wrong. And let's talk about the changes that's got to be made for Game 3. Because that was probably, at least the first half, one of the worst games of football for Queensland I have seen in a long time. And look, I've only ever seen New South Wales win 4 series. So for the better part of my life, I have seen Queensland absolutely have their way with New South Wales. So that first half was like a movie to me, one of my favourite movies of all time. But there is no doubt that that wasn't the Queensland side we're going to see in Game 3, because as much as there's going to be talk, and maybe that's why there hasn't been as much talk, because we've seen this film before, and I didn't like the ending. It's happened a few times now, and it happened under Freddie, I think, twice, as we come out, blitz Queensland in Game 2. We had to go to Suncorp for Game 3, and well, they did what they've been doing for the better part of 2 decades. So maybe that's why there hasn't been too much criticism and not enough, I guess, pushback on Billy getting it wrong in Game 2. And it's not just Billy's fault. I mean, Queensland were complacent. I can get it. We're always going to believe the players and believe what we want to hear. And the Queenslanders spoke for 10 days during that entire Game 2 camp that they weren't going to be complacent, that this was the most important Origin game. But the fact is, they knew they had Game 3 in their back pocket, especially for this young gun Queensland side who only know winning. I mean, you look at guys like Carrigan, Cotter, Hammer, all these guys only know winning. And when they've got Game 3 at Suncorp going for 3 series in a row, maybe they were just a bit complacent. And it only takes a little bit of complacency when you're going up against a team that was desperate to win, that pretty much had to win. So maybe that was the biggest thing, was just that complacency. But when you look at this series as a whole, and Game 1, in my opinion, is pretty much a complete write-off, except for the thing that New South Wales showed a lot of heart, and it was concerning for Queensland that New South Wales managed to hold a 20-10 deficit and dominate field position for nearly half that match between the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half. Now, look, that was until Cherry Evans went God mode, win that 40-20 kick, and decided to turn the game, and Queensland went along with it and decided to destroy New South Wales. But on the series as a whole, and I think a few people have said it, is that New South Wales have played more good footy than Queensland. And New South Wales would probably be going into Game 3 as favourites based on what we've seen this series if it wasn't at Suncorp. But I will say, if Queensland rock up like that and Billy Slater picks that team again in Game 3 and New South Wales, God forbid, no injuries happen and they can pick the same team, then I don't care where the game is being played, they will run away with it again. Now look, God forbid, Queensland just go God mode at Suncorp in Game 3 and win with this same side. But if Queensland roll up this same team and perform like that, they are going to get walloped once again. Because from the middle forwards to the edge defence, Queensland were just not up to it. And I know a lot of things went New South Wales' way. And to be honest, without being too harsh on their moment, Mitchell Moses and Jerome Luai might have had the easiest game ever to play as a half in State of Origin. And that's simply because they nailed the game plan perfectly and the middle forwards absolutely destroyed Queensland. Payne Haas had easily his best Origin game, and it does suck that Queensland don't have Flegler and they don't have Tino, because when those 3 boys, Carrigan, Cotter and Collins, who have been terrific for Queensland over a number of years now, get put on the back foot like that, I don't care if Joey 05 is somehow playing for Queensland in Game 2, they're not going to do anything. And that's what made the job for New South Wales so easily. They rolled through the middle, it isolated the edge defence, and that's when you saw Angus Crichton absolutely demolish DCE and Valentine Holmes, which gave even more space to Latrell Mitchell, which made Brian To'o basically play against nobody. And it's State of Origin, so Queensland had to change the game. They had to turn momentum. That right edge defence had to be better to find some way to stop him, because this is the highest level of rugby league. But you can understand why they couldn't. They had Angus Crichton, who probably had his best game I've ever seen him play, running at them off the back of one of the most dominant forward pack performances I have seen in State of Origin. And the problem is for Queensland is that when Cotter, Collins and Carrigan get put through that mountain of work in the first 20 minutes, they're not going to fire a shot shot for the rest of the game, and that's exactly what happened. It took a 9-0 penalty count in the second half, a good old Ashley Klein even up, to give Queensland a sniff. And even then, those three forwards basically did nothing. I think Carrigan was probably easily the best out of the three of them, but Cotter and Collins, who have been so good, so great for Queensland, top 2 NRL forwards on their day, got absolutely no momentum. They got absolutely bullied, and that's what it sucks when it comes to the rotation for Queensland. And that's why when you're really critical of the other players like your Tommy Diddens, like your Reece Walshes, it all starts with the middle forwards. And the simple fact is, with the amount of possession New South Wales had, but with the game plan they had, once that possession went all the way to New South Wales, it didn't matter if they got 1,000 penalties in the second half, they weren't coming back, because all those three forwards, who have essentially become Queensland's most important players, absolutely fired no shot. And unfortunately, when you got Mo Fodawaker, who's the only prop coming off your bench, who isn't exactly the best long minute player, you're really relying on all those three, including those four. And if just one of them doesn't turn up, and Payne Haas has a game like that, then they're not going to fire a single shot. They're not going to allow DC and Tom Dearden to get into good position, to get Reece Walsh in open space. And it wasn't until the game was over and DC and Tommy Dearden put a few short balls in, and New South Wales had some pretty shocking defence, to be fair, is when they were able to score their points. Outside of that first half, when I think it was Carrigan who might have got Queensland on the front foot and Dearden gave that short ball to Sewell with Reece Walsh sweeping out the back as a decoy, after that moment, and once the penalty count went to New South Wales, the game was over. And once they get put on the back foot like that, of course DC, of course Valentine Holmes, of course Tommy Dearden, all these guys defensively are going to be isolated. When they're going up against the thoroughbreds like Stephen Crichton, Latrell Mitchell, Angus Crichton, Liam Martin, they're going to do damage. And it was a rough night for those edges, which begs the question, what changes do Queensland have to make? Billy Slater coming out saying we're still Queensland, as the bush poetry doesn't work in Melbourne, my friend, because Melbourne does not understand bush poetry. Now, I think we all know that Billy Slater, when he means the we're still Queenslanders, comedy is having a shot at New South Wales, because let's be fair, if that was New South Wales, like we saw in Game 2 last year, Game 3 would look so much different. And I don't think Billy Slater will do that, number one, because I just don't think they have the weapons in the duffel bag to do it, but also this is how Queensland have rocked for years, and it's just happened in previous years where they've come out, got blitzed in Game 2 and come out and won in Game 3. But I do think a lot of players have to have their positions under threat, and while I did just spend a lot of time talking about the middle forwards, I think Valentine Holmes needs to be looked at. Obviously, they've just lost Xavier Coates. I'm not sure if Jaden Sewer can play on the edge for 80 minutes. I'm not sure why Billy didn't go with his Game 1 tactic of an outside back on the bench for Game 2 when it literally worked in Game 1 and would have been definitely handy when Hammer went down in Game 2. I think the question about Reece Walsh has to be asked, because that was one of the worst games of rugby league I've seen Walshy play. And again, it's hard for him. He never got good ball in open space. But even just those lapses in defence were very un-Reece Walsh-like, and I wonder if he was ready. I mean, I would have loved to see Kevy give him a game against the Warriors just to sort of get Reece Walsh back into footy, because it is hard to go from getting absolutely decapitated into going into another State of Origin game. And look, we'll find out the answers to these questions in a week's time when the Game 3 teams are announced. But if I'm Billy, which obviously I'm not, but if there's one change that I think has to be made, and there are a ton of different ways you can bring him into the side, but David Fifita has to be in that Queensland Game 3 team somewhere. I don't know what he's stolen or who he's rooted from Billy Slater to piss him off so badly, or look, maybe there just are things in David Fifita's game where he is slacking that the common man like me just doesn't see. But even if Billy doesn't want to play David Fifita on the edge as a starter, I think bringing him on off the bench through the middle as a guy who can also cover an edge might be the way to go, because New South Wales absolutely dominated with Queensland just having Mo Fodawaker on the bench. They're relying so much on those three starting middle forwards to get them on the front foot and to play long minutes. Bringing Dave Fifita in, just a guy who can come on, have two 20-minute stints, two 30-minute stints, that is going to give Queensland such a leg up, an absolute ball terror through the middle, one of the strongest ball carriers we have in the current NRL. I don't know why he's not there, because when Queensland are on the back foot like they are in Game 1 and looking for someone to come on and change momentum, David Fifita can be your guy. If you want to stick with Nanai, who I think is going to be be a Queensland player for a very long time and you want to stick with Sewer, I think that might be the way to go. And maybe if Sewer struggles or Nano struggles, then you chuck Dave Fafita out there. If God forbid anything bad really happens, then you also have another guy who could potentially fill it in centre. He is a freak athlete, and if anyone can counter what Spencer Lenu's done brilliantly for New South Wales in Game 1, which was change momentum, and in Game 2, which was come on and absolutely terrorise Queensland even more, it's David Fafita. So he'd be my must bring in, either on the bench or starting. I think also that Gagai has to come in. I know he absolutely had a pretty bad game. Mitchell Moses tried to tore him apart, but without Xavier Coates, I think maybe Gagai could go to right centre. I know Latrell Mitchell had his way with him a couple of years ago, but bring Gagai for a one-off game as his farewell for Queensland, because it probably will be his final game in a Queensland jersey, then I think maybe he can definitely have a standout game against Latrell Mitchell, because Dane Gagai having a chance to farewell Queensland, having a chance in a decider at Suncorp, that absolutely terrifies me. Then you could put Holmes on the wing and simplify his role, because I think Holmes on the wing is probably a better player at the Queensland level than he was a centre. And I think Selwyn Cobbo has to come into the side. I know he wasn't great again on the weekend, and maybe he has pulled out entirely from this State of Origin series, but we saw Latrell Mitchell, the presence he brought. I think Cobbo does the same thing for Queensland. I mean, look at the way once the send-off happened, how he terrorised Nico Hines and he terrorised Zach Lomax down that left edge. And look, the Hammer got the tries, fair enough, but it was Selwyn Cobbo getting early ball from Tommy Dearden and absolutely trucking some rugby league nuts. So I think Fafita has to come in. I think Gagai has to come in. Cobbo, I'm 50-50 on. Either way, I think an outside back on the bench is probably the way to go, because I just think Kurt Capewell, we've seen him at the Warriors struggle a little bit this year. He's a terrific leader, but maybe he's just lacking a little bit. Probably still great to have in camp, but I just think that role he played in Game 2 has probably gone past him just a little bit. But I think Dave Fafita is the biggest change I would make, the one you have to make. Like I said, either start him on the edge like I would have done from the very beginning, or bring him on as a strong running forward through the middle to counteract New South Wales fullback. Because if Payne Haas, Jake Trbojevic, Isaiah Yeo, Cam Murray have that sort of game again in Game 2, then who's going to change the game? Who's going to turn momentum back for Queensland? New South Wales were able to do that in Game 1 with Spencer Leniu. I think maybe bring Dave Fafita in because, well, he's one of the best forwards in the entire competition. But, you know, Billy Slater, he knows more than I do because he is one of the great rugby league minds of all time. But Game 2 was a sad night for Queensland. They look forward to Game 3. It is at Suncorp, so let's be honest, they're probably going to win. They're going to win well. But ladies and gentlemen, let me know where you think Billy Slater got it wrong for Queensland in Game 2. What changes would you make for Game 3 for the Maroons? Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet already, and I'll see you in the next one.